Just 10 years ago, I thought maybe, am I a trans woman? When I was in therapy and I was just like really addicted and I was going through a very dark time. And thank God my therapist just, kind of ignored that. He didn't even make a big deal out of it because I'm not a trans woman at all. I mean, I love trans women, but I'm just not one. And I was just going through a dark time. So imagine what a 10 or 12-year-old kid would be going through. That's crazy. And
Hey everybody, I got another one. I got an awesome, cool person who emailed me a while back and just was watching all my stuff and really just appreciated what I'm doing and asked if I would be wanting to have a conversation with him. And I was like, "Are you kidding? Of course." So first, before I forget, please subscribe, do all that stuff because I really, I see you all. Thank you so much. You're helping me build this space so I can bring all these amazing people on who have different opinions about what's happening. And I think that's really what I want to utilize this space for on some level. So here we go, kids. This is Indy. And so I just want you to tell us about, I'm just meeting him for the first time now. So I wanted to make it sort of spontaneous because I love those kind of interviews. So this is Indy. Why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit, where you're from, blah, 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 all that stuff.
I'm a drag artist. I mean, drag queen, drag artist from Amsterdam. And actually, when I first started my career I was convinced I'm a drag queen, but then I started discovering the more I played women, the more I started to like myself as a man. I'm like, this is interesting, and yeah, for all intents and purposes, I'm a gay man, but like also I'm discovering new parts of myself as well. Like lately, one of the reasons why actually we were connected is because I met a trans guy, and I never thought I'd ever be into trans men, and that blew my mind. And then I started, you know, watching stuff and reading and all that kind of stuff, and then yeah, so I'm still discovering what I like and who I am. But yeah, I'm a guy, I think.
Well, I think we all don't know who we are, just so you know. That being said, no, I love that you are so open. You're my favorite kind of person because you're always self discovery. I'm still doing that. I think that is super important for the world, and especially, I do a lot of this stuff now for the young people because I feel like they're trapped in this idea of what they need to be, trans or non-binary or all of these things, and I think they're missing out right now on such an opportunity to grow and try to play with all kinds of things. I mean, I did that when I was a youngster, and I think by playing with all the identities, you sort of on some level makes you stronger in who you're trying to find and how you try to find. So I think it's really beautiful that you're open to experimenting with your sexuality, or
yeah, and I love that you
want to call
it, because that's what drag is for me. That's what it's taught me, is that it's playing. It's like I can literally put on a new identity for the day, and that's who I am today. And I started off by playing women, and then I started playing men, like my favorite philosophers, and kind of putting a comedic twist on it. Of course, I was like, hey, wow, I actually love being a man. What the hell is that all about? And it's like it's a play. So that's really, yeah, I love that.
Well, I think that we have such it's even going backwards. I think we really did dismantle this rigid idea of gender for a long time in our LGBT community. I really do think that, but now I feel like we're going way back into these rigid ideas of even non-binary is rigid. I don't care what anybody. You're still rigidly setting who you are, and not, and on some level that we don't have the freedom to be fluid as we used to have, because when you start making all these sort of spaces, those are actual labels and you're shoving yourself into these labels, right? So to find yourself as a man, I think is really powerful on some level through dress up, right?
yeah. Through letting myself daring to be feminine, I discovered actually what is masculine. And I think just to touch on something you just said, I think the reason, when you first grow up, especially like I grew up like took me a while to even admit that I'm gay. And so I think, but I've realized now that queer people or gay people, whatever you want to call us, we also like labels, just like the rest of heteronormative society. And I think that's why we're just nowadays latching on to these things like, okay, I'm this, and you need to call me that. And I think it's fear of being truly free, because freedom is scary to be really.
Oh my gosh. No, you hit it right on the head. And, again, there's a lot of ageism in our community as well as in the world. I mean, people are so ageist. When they find out I'm 60, they're like, as if I'm like literally 1 foot in the grave. I'm like, bitches, I just started. So that being said, I do think sometimes that we have these, again, and even in our community, this idea of what a drag queen is now, right? I remember back in the day when people started transitioning in the trans male world, and they were drag kings before, and they still stayed drag kings. That caused a lot of drama because a drag king on some level is illusion, is it not? Remember, we used to call it female impersonator. So it's an illusion. But then I say, well, how can it be an illusion if you're growing a beard and mustache and you're playing a dude? That's not an illusion on some level. So it became this really, I'm wondering, in the drag queen world, is there been that drama as well?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's funny, like nowadays, because of RuPaul and the mainstreaming of drag, I think drag has lost a little bit of the transgressive, kind of also ironic, funny. It's just boys
That's right.
straight up, they just want to be Beyonce, which is kind of like, oh, kind of boring.
Kind of boring.
Funny, like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, so, which
Yeah.
that's one way of looking at trans. Maybe some of these boys actually just want to be women, and that's fine, that's great. But drag for me is the play, like you said a little while ago, that's what I'm missing nowadays, the playfulness. But
Yeah.
it's funny you brought up the drag king, because I recently watched a documentary on Netflix called Man for a Day by this drag king Diane Tor. She passed away, but it's a beautiful film. And I said, give these
I'll check it
workshops
out.
about for women how to be men and dress up as men and walk in the world as men and how to take space and how to even put your feet on the ground. And I'm like, damn, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, that is what it's like to be a man, because it is a play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a total. This is a costume. I don't, I might offend other people, but in my own space, and I can talk about myself in my own. I'm not dumb. I realize I am actually biologically female. I mean, this is the whole reason I transitioned to. This is a costume on some level. That female person's still there. It's never going to leave. I don't care how many drugs I take. I don't care how big my beard and my stuff gets, or But for me, really, coming to terms with that really helped my transition a lot, and not denying where I came from. And I think we are in this really weird place now in this world where there's a lot of denial about where we come from and why we do these things and why drag exists and so I want to ask you, what's the importance for you with drag? What do you think that brings to the world, or has brought to the world?
Yeah, I mean, we as drag queens, we're always complaining, oh, RuPaul is mainstream this whole thing and ruined it. But kind of like secretly, we're all happy that it's hard, because we are becoming more accepted by the rest of the world. So that's really great. But yeah, for me, it's just liberated me. It's allowed me to reconnect with my childhood and to discover the parts of myself that are my mother and my father, and just really love myself. It sounds so cliche, but it's really done that. Yeah.
No, it sounds beautiful, and I think that was always on some level, like I went going back. I know that they used to call it female impersonator because my parents are in their 80s. They used to go when I was a kid. I remember that they used to go out here in Los Angeles to the Valley to this place called. Oh gosh, I can't remember right now, but it was like a drag show, and my parents used to go and watch the female impersonators. It was literally made for straight people, it wasn't made necessarily for our community, and I think a lot of actual people loved it, and they were very much entertained. So to me, it was also an entertainment and a way to sort of maybe play with your identity and it was mostly gay men, was it not?
Yeah, definitely. And when I started drag, which I started only 2 years ago at 41. I started drag in Corona. I used to make documentary films, and I was living a very serious life and like completely. And something about Corona just woke me up. I'm like, hey, I want to perform. Actually, I've just been pretending that I like to be behind the scenes, but I don't. And so it's been kind of a journey on that level. But when I first started performing at gay clubs, doing the typical thing, like a bar queen. But I soon realized that I prefer performing for like straight people and doing more theater. So I kind of transitioned to doing lip sync theater shows for like non-gay crowds. And I've been loving it because you can literally see their brains getting transformed as they watch you. And it's not as easy. They're not clapping at everything like the gay crowd, but I kind of love it. I feel like I have to earn it more. I don't know what that says about me and my people pleasing. Right?
No, It doesn't sound like people pleasing. It sounds to me like you understand you're using your space as a, if you don't know, I'll tell you, as an educational space on some level as well. And we have to give the people who don't understand us, some vision of us in a way that shows we like ourselves. We're having fun. Like, this is awesome. I think you're actually doing a service for us because, again, we live in a bubble a lot of times in our community, right? We just continually do this and we don't sort of reach out to the outside world. And I think by reaching to the outside world and the haters or whatever you want to call them, it makes them hate us less on some level. And by you doing that work, to me, that's the work. When you go outside of your own community and take what you have, because people could say mean things to you. Have they ever thrown things at you or said
I've been
mean
very
things to
lucky
you?
that way because I'm not like a very, I don't know, confrontational. I don't know what's the word. I go in kind of trying to absorb people's anger. I'm ready that people will not accept me. Let's put it that way. And I don't get offended very easily if someone doesn't. So I kind of, when a cab driver is taking me to the venue and I'm in drag, I kind of give room to him not being totally on board with what I'm doing. If he's an old man or
That's right.
and so I kind of, which is what attracts me to your channel and the people you talk to, is that everybody that you gravitate towards seem to have thicker skin and not, and that's how because it's up to us, like you said, to educate the world because. Yeah, it's not about calling someone the right pronoun. I have an Arabic Muslim background on paper at least, and for me, I have an aunt like my dad's sister who is veiled and she prays 5 times a day, but she's been so accepting of my drag and she finds it funny and hilarious, and she doesn't use the right pronouns, but I think there's a lot of love in her heart. So I prefer that, to judge people on their intent rather than if they're presenting themselves in the right way or whatever.
Oh, see, we're already best friends. We're already best friends because seriously, intent. Hear that, people out there, please. Intention is so important in all of this. You have to understand people's intention. If they are actually misgendering you or calling you names, that's on purpose. That's different. Their intention is to hurt your feelings. But like what you're saying, she's not intending to hurt your feelings. I think she's just trying to get on board, but doesn't understand the whole process. We got to give people some space to figure us out. You can't expect people to just, and then you call them transphobic and TERFs. And, as an older person, I find kind of what we're doing today in this community to be kind of disrespectful to the rest of the world on some level, as well as not understanding the nuanced space that we have to bring to the world in order for the world. That's why I love drag, and I think drag is important. I want to ask you this one question as a drag performer. So here in the States, I don't know what's happening over in the EU, but in the States, we have now drag queen sort of parties for young people. And so it's turned into a political football, just like trans. Trans is political now. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not good. It's not good at all. But that being said, so here it's oh my God, drag kings, drag queens, not drag kings, only drag queens, and kids. So, I have mixed feelings about it, but I'd really love to hear
it. It's hard not to
say
follow
about
it, because it's everywhere, and of course it's blown out of proportion, and again it reduces everything to a binary. Again, we're going back in the same trap. But yeah, right. I don't know if drag humor is suitable for children. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if I want to put my show on for kids, and it's just not for kids, and it doesn't mean that society is rejecting me. It's just, unless I can do a little clown happy thing, then maybe it would be suitable. But most of my stuff and the other drag queens that I know, our shows are not designed for children. So, and I don't think it's offensive to keep us away from children.
Thank you. Yeah. I get it. I get if you want to bring a drag queen in for storytelling. Well, then dress like an old lady, right? Dress in a long dress and you know what I mean? Like grandma. I actually don't have a problem with that because that's just play and dress up and all of that. But we all know, come on, let's just be honest here. You just said it. It's a very adult space. Why are we acting like it's not? Drag was made for adults. It was never made for children. And it's not the same as a clown or playing dress up. It's a completely different space in there. So I'm going to tell you that I have I don't believe that children should be in bars watching drag
Exactly,
queens. I just
definitely not in
don't think
bars.
so.
And yeah, I think there's so much nuance and layers to drag that children don't get, like wouldn't get and shouldn't be expected to get. I mean, to them it'll just be like, oh, why is this woman so big? I mean, that's how they'll get. They won't get, the beauty and.
That's
But yeah, I
that's
mean,
right.
people love getting angry about stuff. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, we're creating that anger as well. We have to hold I will hold some of the community responsible
But
for stuff that's happening, because some of the stuff that's, yes, being said, it doesn't reflect me. And again, that's okay. I think that we need to have that situation, and we can't all agree. We never have. But my focus has always been about kids now. Find kids are being thrown into this conversation that should never be. Whether that's transitioning a child, whether that's drag kings and kids, or queens, whether that's teaching them at school about the unicorn gingerbread man. All of those things, I think, are not appropriate for children, and children will find their space. Me and you found our space.
the discussions you have with your different guests, like it really blows my mind. I mean, I've been getting an education in this, and it's kind of scary what is being done to children. I don't know much about it. I've been knowing from those interviews, and Jesus, it's really. If I had a kid, I wouldn't want any of this to happen to them. I mean, just 10 years ago, I thought maybe, am I a trans
That's right.
woman? When I was in therapy and I was just like really addicted and I was going through a very dark time. And thank God my therapist just, kind of ignored that. He didn't even make a big deal out of it, because I'm not a trans woman at all. I mean, I love trans women, but I'm just not one. And I was just going through a dark time. So imagine what a 10 or 12-year-old kid would be going through. That's crazy. But then again, you have people
That's
like
right.
Blair White, who I also love very much, and she seemed to have known herself since quite a young age. But she's probably like an exception, or like lucky to have had. Or
Well, me too. Me too. I knew I was a boy. I dressed like a boy. I played like a boy. When I had to put girl clothes on, I freaked. All of that stuff. No kidding. And I do believe, like I said earlier, I'm not saying that a kid might not know himself or feel like a boy or feel like a girl. Whatever that means, you can't take that at like just solid. Mommy, I feel like a boy, or my like solid. Okay, let's give you hormones and that, because I did a test. I actually put out it was in my Twitter, and I said, if you were a woman who was very masculine as a kid or was a tomboy, do you think today that you would have been transitioned, and I said something like, do you live today as a woman, or do you think back then you would have transitioned? I got 4,000 comments of people telling me that they would have been transitioned, and today they all live as a woman. They're very happy. They're married. They love being a woman. They are so. I just tested the waters a little bit, because when I grew up, I was a tomboy, but then so were all my friends. But all my friends became women, and I became a man. So I was one out of 10 of these kids. So I don't think we're giving this understanding of growth and the brain and what you see. Kids see things. I have a kid. I have a
oh,
10-year-old kid, so I do have a little bit of understanding
oh
of
wow, you
what's
never
going on.
mentioned your kid, or at least I haven't heard you. Oh, that's great. I'm dying.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a 10-year-old. He's awesome. He's such a cool kid. And, because I'm a cool dad, but, I'm like literally 10 with him. But that being said, I don't see any of that happening with him. I just see him straight dude. He wants to play all the dude. He's just a total little dude. But if and he has long hair, he has long blue hair, and sometimes he wants to put nail polish, whatever. That doesn't mean he's trans. That just means has parents who are artistic and want to give him the freedom to be who he needs to be. That's what I think is missing. The freedom to be without
Yeah, the hormone
medicalizing
blockers and the
it. Just
medication is a
be.
bit scary. Like one of your guests once said that, I think why, or some, I don't know where I heard this, but that we don't let 15-year-olds drink alcohol, and that we let them take this. It's like, yeah, that's a very good point. It's how are we even doing? But I just want to ask you about your kid
That's
again,
right.
if I may. Like, how is it your
Yeah, of course.
biological
Of course.
child?
No. I did not get pregnant, nor do I ever want to be pregnant, and that we could have that discussion. But that being said, no, I adopted him. So my partner is her biological son, and also his biological dad is one of my best friends. So me and him have a serious. We have like a total three-way family. We're like, because it's all about him. It's all about the kid. It's not about our differences. And I think if parents out there are listening to me who are going through a divorce or have separation, you must understand the kid needs to come first. And whatever your hate or dislike towards each other, you got to put that to the side. The kid will feel it. The kid will know it. The kid will grow up with that stuff, and it will actually affect them in the long term when they see their parents hating
and this is
on
even
each
outside
other.
the trans world. Like even those parents who use this excuse, oh, we're staying together for the children, but children pick up on all the resentment and all the shit between. Like, come on. Yeah, the kids are. But it's funny you said
Yes,
that
that's
you
right.
adopted your kid, because I've always thought that for me, because I'm a gay man, that adoption would be the way I would have children. It was like there was no doubt in it. But then recently, as I met that trans guy and I started talking, and it just blew my mind that a trans man could carry a baby. Sorry, that sounds ignorant, but I just didn't think it was possible. I thought, oh fuck! Like and this is the only. If I end up with a trans man, I would actually love to have my own biological child. Yeah, and
Wow.
yeah, it's really, I'm
Wow. It's
still kind of
beautiful.
processing what this means because it's very new to me, but it's incredible.
Mhm. Yeah, so the pregnancy thing. I'll be honest with you. Many of us transsexual guys, it does give us a little dysphoria because that feels very feminine to me, and it feels very. But again, I do not care what other people do. They have an adult. They can do whatever they mean. But for somebody like myself who had major dysphoria around being female and my female parts and all of that, to get pregnant feels so feminine and female to me, and that's just me and my story. But I do think it's quite fascinating that certain trans men can compartmentalize. I think they can remove themselves from that space, and they do feel masculine to have. And I find it really fascinating, and in no way shaming. Just wow, that's really amazing. You can get yourself out of that space because more and more trans men, I think, are
Yeah,
starting to
especially
talk about
when the guy
being
who's
pregnant
talking
men.
about it is presenting very male, because I'm attracted to masculinity, and the male really blew my mind that there was nothing
Right.
female about this guy at all, yet he was talking about being pregnant. I'm like, shit. It turned me on in so many ways, not even just sexual. Like
Yeah.
my brain was exploding as he was telling me this information. I didn't think that was possible because it breaks so many stereotypes.
Oh gosh, it totally does. And it's been going on for a long time. I don't, you won't know, but there was a man named Thomas Beatty, and he was the first pregnant man. And, that was back 20 years ago, and people were freaked out by him. And I think he had 3 babies, and people lost but he became very famous very quick because he was the pregnant man. But it did make people get upset. It gets people upset when we start to sort of play with the biology of the world, right? Biology is important for many reasons, but I think when you start to do those things, and I came to the world as the man with the vagina.
Yeah, that's the
People
other thing I wanted to talk to you about.
freaked.
It's funny you said you have a lot of dysphoria, because just watching your work and like the porn and all, you don't seem like someone with dysphoria at all. You seem so comfortable.
Not anymore, I don't. But we start to talk about pregnancy and that trans men get pregnant, that just it got me a little bit weirded out. And so did my work. My work actually did the same for other trans men. When I was like, "Yeah, I'm a man with a pussy," yeah, trans men were like, I'm not." But here's what you need to understand. I never made it about all of us. I only made it about me, if that makes sense. It was Buck Angel, the man with the pussy, or Buck Angel has a vagina. It was never trans men have. So I think the difference in the language in the dialogue today is trans men get pregnant, people get pregnant. So it's lumping us all, which is a mistake because
Yeah,
it's like saying all gay men are the same.
yeah, I love
Really?
that you,
Okay, no,
because it's when you meet one trans person, when you
right?
meet one gay person, you've only met one trans person or gay person, because we are really, yeah, different. But yeah,
That's
so
right.
okay, I have another question to you about that, because I thought, because I'm a gay man, so
Yep,
that means I'm attracted
yep.
to a penis. But actually, it turns out I don't care about the penis, and I only hate the vagina if it's attached to a woman. But if it's attached to a man, turns out I'm completely fine with it. So that's another thing that blew my mind. Like, damn, okay, it's just, again, but it's
Because you're attracted to masculinity. You're attracted to masculinity. You're not necessarily attracted to the penis, right? And I think when I started doing my work, that was it. I opened that door, opened Pandora's box, because I got so many gay men. Like, I'm not sure why I'm attracted to you, because, you know, like, you have a vagina and that's freaky and weird. But I'm like, dude, you're attracted to my masculine space. That I always say gay men aren't necessarily attracted to penis. They're attracted to the masculinity or the maleness.
Some
or the
are, but I
bonding
don't
of
really
men,
relate to
right?
those. Like some, it's like literally, like, if you'd be on an app, the first thing they ask you, how big is it? Blah blah blah. All that's like, oh come on, that's so boring. It's not even sexy. But I guess and people are different, right? So people can.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing that we must understand. And all of the LGBTQ community, all of us, we're all different. We come to this in a different way. We have different experiences. How we are, we might be out, we might be not. We might get surgery, we might not. We might be bisexual. You know, there's just layers that we, for some reason, are compacting. Compacting ourselves. Now everything is about queer and trans, and that's it. And I'm like, but what about gay men and lesbians and bisexual people? But it feels like the narrative today is about queer and trans, and that's it. And I actually don't relate to either of those. I don't consider myself a trans person. I consider myself a transsexual person who lives as a man. I live as a man. I don't live as a trans man.
It wouldn't have made sense if this
sense.
was the first time I hear it, but because I've been watching a lot of your videos, I'm kind of like catching up onto what you mean. But okay, another question. Are you attracted then to women, right? You're
Oh. No, both. I'm totally 100% bisexual. Yeah, I'm very attracted to men and women. It just tends to seem I have relationships more with women on some level. And I'm wondering also because, you know, remember, I'm a biological female and I was raised half my life that way, socialized. So I'm wondering also if my brain connects to another female in a way that I cannot necessarily connect to a man because I have a different brain. Female brains and male brains are different. They've done studies on it. And so I'm wondering, you know, my attraction to men is purely sexual. Like total piggy sex, like that's my sexual attraction to men, right? And mostly very like masculinity, man, that type of space. So you can't, you know, the thing is like I hear this narrative today, like if you don't have sex with a trans person, you're transphobic.
That's disturbing.
I'm like, wow, that sounds really insane. And you're gonna force gay men to have gay men are same-sex attracted. I don't care. That's why it was difficult for gay men with me because they are same-sex attracted. And when you pull my pants down, I have a different way of being. And you know, it's your brain is wired. You can't change that wiring. And if you know your brain sees a vagina as opposed to a penis, it can't comprehend it. And that says a lot to me. It says we are wired sexually on some level, right?
You're laying some. So I have to kind of think about them. Yeah, but I'm learning.
So, no kidding. So what's happening in Amsterdam with all this sort of stuff that's
happens there in pop culture and discussion, like, you know, trickles down to the rest of the world, and Netherlands is no exception. It's actually Netherlands, out of most European countries, they really look up to the state. And and we have Pride now. It starts on Saturday, Pride season, and it's funny here. Again, the same thing as you have in the States. You have the young social justice warriors who are just, you know, obsessed with like identity politics. And I was working with a makeup artist once who he presents as male completely, and he is male. And so I was tagging him on Instagram just to say how talented he was and how amazing, because he is such a talent. He got so offended and hurt that I refer to him as he and not they. And I was like, okay, that was my introduction to it. And he's quite young, like 23, so I thought, okay, fine. But it was my education into that, because I meant it like I was just in love with his work and what he is, and bragging about how amazing. But he doesn't want to be called he. But it's very interesting. This stuff is. I feel like this whole social justice warrior thing, people are like covertly narcissistic a little bit when they do that, because they're fighting for a cause, but they're really just trying to show themselves or deal with some unresolved childhood trauma, or something is going on there that is not adding up with the message they're saying that's about liberation, or I don't know. It's a bit.
That's right. There's a lot of hypocrisy attached to it, right? So I totally agree with you on that. And again, I will always respect somebody's pronouns. Never will that's just ridiculous. That would be me saying, basically, I don't care what you feel. But that's not cool. I will respect how you choose to identify. But there's parts of it that I don't respect because, as an older person who transitioned so long ago, to live as a man, as you can see, this is so important to me that you see me as a man, that you wouldn't have to ask me my pronouns. If you have to ask me my pronouns, like I always say, that my sex change sucked. It means I didn't do a good job. So I find offense to somebody asking me my pronouns. So I think that's what so the non-binary crowd needs to understand about the transsexual crowd, that we don't align in needing for somebody to ask us our pronouns, but we respect you.
Yeah,
but on the flip side of that, I don't understand the anger.
Definitely. And it has something
what you just
to do
said
with
to me.
What they're dealing with. Because every time I've ever spoken to someone who's like angry about this stuff, I quickly realize they have issues with their mother, their father, drugs. Something else is always going on. It's like, okay, so is that what you're doing? And it's a lot. I don't know if it's a weird analogy to make, but I love animals.
It's sad.
Like all kinds of animals. So you cross paths with a lot of animal activists and animal rights activists, and their rage sometimes, which can be a little bit misplaced, reminds me a little bit of the social justice warriors in this. Like they fight for animals, but they also hate humans. It's like, okay, this is kind of fucked up. So I feel like there's a bit of a similarity there. It's like you're fighting for a cause, but you're kind of hurting a lot of people in the process, and you're not caring what it does to people as you do that. So it's, it's weird. Especially it's more dangerous with trans because kids' lives are at stake, which is really frightening.
Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate you all again. Remember, like and subscribe and move forward, and also follow his channel, please. And anyway, I love everyone out there, and let's continue these amazing conversations.